morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our colleagues. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon in Nairobi. I see the numbers are growing, and we are looking forward to an engageful session for the next maybe 1.5 hours. My name is Anne Waithaka. I'm a Senior Communications Officer with APHRC, and we are looking forward to learning to craft the core components of grant proposals. This project is implemented by APHRC under one of our programs, and I'll be inviting my colleague Bernard shortly to briefly highlight the project and what we aim to do before we get to our speaker for the day, Dr. Anthony. And so in the interest of time, allow me to invite Bernard to just mention something about the ARSH project. Thank you. As we proceed, please just check in the chat feature. Allow us to know who you are and where you're from, and engage. Thank you. Bernard?
Okay, thank you so much, Anne. And so in our new strategic plan that runs from 2020 to 2026, our mission now focuses on generating evidence, strengthening research and related capacity, various actors in most of the engagements and activities that we have. Then we are always guided by innovation. So always you'll find us improving our products, our processes, and our systems so that we are at the cutting edge in everything that we do. Then you'll also find that in all our programs, we have truly African composition, including even our staff. And then most of the projects that we do, you'll also realize that we have a physical presence in most of the African countries. So we are truly African as far as our reach is concerned. Then we strive for meaningful change in all our engagements and activity. So what drives us is actually impact in whatever we do, as opposed to just having outputs. We are actually in several programs, and maybe as you look at this, you'll be able to see where you can fit as far as APHRC is concerned. So some of our programmatic areas, we have health and well-being. And here we have programs including nutrition and food systems, sexual, reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health, chronic disease management, health system strengthening, emerging and re-emerging infections. Then on the human development, we have early childhood development, youth and transition to work, gender and education, education and technology, higher education research. Then we also have population dynamics and urbanization. So here we mainly look at migration and urbanization and sustainability, water sanitation and hygiene, aging and development, determinants of high fertility, urban health and demographic surveillance. Then finally, data science, which is actually growing at a very high rate. Here we have areas including measurement and impact evaluation. We have data science, and you also have data systems. So by looking at all this, you realize that there is always something that you can participate in within APHRC. So now I'll talk about the Afrique Research Support Hub initiative, which has actually made this webinar to happen. And the aim of this initiative is basically successfully deliver an African-centric research support hub that provides practical research and grantmanship skills. And these skills are required to conceptualize research and also successfully fundraise for this research. And how are we able to achieve this? So we are looking at having research support hubs within 3 satellite stations. And the first satellite station is the West and Central Africa. And here we'll basically concentrate on French and English speaking. And then we also have another South African Africa hub. And then we also have the East African hub. Then these research hubs will provide access to resources, mentorship, light training, webinars, and also intense training with protected time. And we mainly are looking at post-PhD, early and mid-career researchers in the 3 regions. So the scope of this webinar series include, so we'll have webinars, and each of these webinars will always last for 1 hour and 30 minutes. And then we'll also be able to discuss general practices in grant writing. So if you've been following this series, the grant writing webinar series, you'll realize that we tackle every component that is involved within the grant writing process. And then we also seek to have great PhD research, post-PhD researchers who have capacities to conceptualize research and also develop very strong fundable proposals. So what do we have in store for you? So we have opportunities we have a self-paced training, which has been, we put the advert a few days ago, and I believe you've seen it in our social media handles. In case you haven't seen it, maybe you can just use this QR code. You can just take a photo of this QR code, and then you can register. The deadline is 31st March. That is in the next 4 days, 4 to 5 days. And already I'm being told that the people who have registered for this or who have shown interest are around 4,000. And we'll be making it fast come, fast serve. So make sure you are able to register for it. In case you don't get an opportunity for the cohort of April, we'll keep in our database, and you'll be able to find an opportunity in the coming months. So take a photo on that. I'll also share a link through the chat on this so that you are able to register. And I've actually seen that it has been shared, so you can click on that link and you'll be able to register. Then we also have in-person workshops, and this one, as we had mentioned before, we also have in-person trainings whereby you are taken through the grant writing. So we have already done one for East Africa. So now we'll be doing one for West and Central Africa hub. Then we'll also do one for South African hub. So again, we normally put an advert out, and then we get the successful participants. Then how do you engage us? So one way of engaging us is through our self-paced courses. And these self-paced courses, example that I've given you is the one that you are registering for. But if you go to our virtual learning academy, you'll also find other courses that you'll be able to do in a self-paced manner and be able to attain knowledge and also get a certificate. Then we also encourage you to join our communities of practice. And we have communities of practice that can enable you share knowledge with one another. We can also generate knowledge. And it's actually a very good platform for communicating and for collaborating and networking. And I will also advise you that this is an area that even funders look at when they want to fund potential applicants. So you never know. Maybe when you introduce yourself in that platform, a funder will be able to see you based on how you market yourself. So the community of practice that I will want you to join, even as we are continuing this session, is the grant writing, and I'll be able to share with you the link how you can be able to join. And I know it has been shared, or it will be shared in a minute. So once you get to our community of practice platform, the first thing that you'll do is to create an account. Then once you have created an account, it's actually cop.aphrc.org. Click there, create an account. Then you'll be able to receive some credentials. That is a username and a password. Once you get that username and password, use it to log in. Then select the community of choice. In this case, you'll select the grant writing community of practice. Then you can do self-introduction, and this is the place whereby you need to put your best. You need to brand yourself very well at this space, so that people will be able to know who you are, where you come from, the country, your research interests. If there are any funding that you've received, you can also put them there so that people can be able to know who you are. Then after you've introduced yourself, the next thing that you do is to engage, and you can engage through questions and answers. So you'll find a place whereby you can be able to put your questions and also put respond to some people who might have questions that you have managed to go through, or maybe areas that they may have challenges, you've already succeeded in them. So we expect you to be able to engage to that. And from those question and answer sessions that you have with your peers, we are able to get areas of capacity in needs. And it also helps us now to come up with the capacity strengthening initiatives for African researchers. Yeah, so that's basically about the project, the initiative, the ARSH initiative, and also our community of practice. We hope to continue conversations through the community of practice platform, and we also wish you all the best as you apply to get enrolled for the self-paced course. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard, for that very enlightening presentation. We have the links to the course and the COP in the chat. Please make a point to register for the course if you've not, and to visit and register for our COP. Welcome to those who joined since the last time I was on screen, and please continue introducing yourself. And now to hear from Anthony. We are pleased to have Anthony giving us a presentation on grant writing. And just allow me to say a few things about Anthony, who's our colleague. In just a minute. Okay. Right. So Anthony is a research scientist with APHRC, the African Population and Health Research Center. He's what we would say an expert in SRHR, and I'm sure he's going to mention this even as he talks about grant writing. He's currently a co-investigator on gender transformative intervention aimed at empowering adolescent mothers through education in Malawi and Burkina Faso. And he's also working on another project that is testing the feasibility and effectiveness of a home and mobile-based counseling intervention to improve parenting, adolescents, contraceptive use, and continuation in Kenya. Very interesting project. He also serves as a PI on the SIPSI project, which is one of the projects at APHRC, challenging the politics of social exclusion. And CPC aims to support the establishment of a robust evidence base that can strengthen policy engagement and advocacy efforts to advance SRHR in Africa. Additionally, Anthony has supported the capacity strengthening of CSOs, media, religious leaders, researchers, policymakers in Eastern and Southern Africa by delivering training on matters SRHR. And to why he's speaking to us today, or why we would want to hear what Anthony has to offer, he's led and contributed to over 26 grant applications in the past 5 years. 12 of these applications have been successful, and it would be interesting to hear how did we get to the 12, what happened to the rest, and the pathway to this success. So please welcome Anthony. And as we proceed, put your questions in the chat. Our speakers will respond to them, but we'll also have a Q&A section at the end of Anthony's presentation. Anthony?
Thank you, Anne. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Anne, confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Is it moving as well?
No.
It's not.
No, it's moving. It's moving. Thank you.
Okay, it's moving. Okay. Thank you very much and welcome to today's webinar on crafting the core components of grants application. I do know that there are different types of grants. Some are fellowship applications. Some are, expression of interest at the beginning stage. And then there are some that are also full proposal. But depending on the grant you're applying for, some of what we'll be talking about today will be applicable. Whether it's an expression of interest, whether it's a fellowship application, or whether it's a full proposal that you're working on, you would see several of these sections in your proposal, in your application. But of course, you will need to tailor each of these components to your needs. So typically in a grant application, you will provide an executive summary that will provide an overview of the entire write-up. So there will be a context or a sort of background that will lay out the problem you aim to address. And then there will be objectives that you aim to accomplish, as well as the outcomes you aim to accomplish. You will lay out the methods or approach you want to use to accomplish those objectives. Often you will have a theory of change, as well as how you're going to measure, monitor, evaluate, and document learning in your proposal. Also, you will work on a budget and justify your budget. And then you will reflect on risk, as well as how you're going to mitigate those risks. You're going to have a work plan, timeline, as well as milestones that will lay out what you accomplish when. And then you have the personnel, who are the people that will work on the grants. And then depending on the application you are making, there will be a resource or institution section where you will talk about the resources you have to support the project, or institutional support you will get to support your project. We're going to look at each of these components more keenly. So typically, you want to provide a concise yet a thorough overview of the project, covering its essential component in an executive summary. While you want to be as concise as possible, you also want to share enough details in this section to allow reviewers to quickly get interested in your proposal. Ability to do this well will make or mar the proposal, because if the executive summary of the abstract, so to say, is uninteresting, maybe they are not even interested in reading the entire thing. And in a competitive grant, say they want to award 10 applications, often they will receive a minimum of 200 applications, depending on the topic. In some cases, even if they want to shortlist 10, they might even receive up to 1,000 applications. So your ability to immediately endear yourself to the reviewers would really work well in them getting interested in reading the rest of your proposal. So basically, you want to describe the issue or need that is being addressed. You want to quickly, outline the project's main goal and objectives, and then the detailed proposed method and strategies for achieving them. Also, you want to highlight the anticipated results or impact of the project. And if you do this very well, and as well as some principles that you would use to ensure equity, fairness in the work you are doing, would also be interesting. For example, there are concepts like co-designing intervention. If you're proposing an intervention, what principle is guiding the design? It might be human-centered design, for example, as an approach that is guiding it, sort of a theoretical frame that's guiding this design of the intervention. Maybe it's also a participatory methodology you are using to canvas opinion of the beneficiary of the intervention, so that their needs are factored in your design. All of these principles you must also include in the abstract or the executive summary. Typically, executive summary serves as a compelling introduction to the proposal, enabling donors and stakeholders to quickly understand the project's importance and potential. Now, are there word limits? Often, some proposals would allow for word limits. So they will tell you that executive summary is maybe 300 words, 200 words, 250 words, 400 words, 500 words. Depending on the call they're applying to, often they state it, but if they do not state it, please keep this section short and not more than 1 page at the maximum. But if you can even do it in half a page, that is really good. So you need to cut dead weight words. You need to cut all those adverbs that add unnecessary words to your write-up. You just cut all of them. And but without missing the important information you want to pass across. And also know that the success of your application depends on the summary you provide. Now, typically, even though I presented the executive summary first, it's probably what you write last. In most cases, it's what we're going to write last, as the last thing after we've completed your draft. Also, we have an overview or a context section, or an introduction, so to say, where you offer critical information to help the donor understand the environment in which the project will operate. You want to explain the current situation, highlighting the problem the project aims to address using relevant statistics or data. The good thing about data is it helps people to understand the magnitude and the dimension of the problem. And then one question that you might have in your mind is, what if I'm working on an area where there is no data? How do I navigate this? So I would say, if you anticipate that you want to work in an area that there is no data, why not begin by doing a small study on the topic to generate that data, and then advance that work. Maybe you can apply for funding to do a preliminary study, so to generate evidence of the magnitude of this problem. and then you can then advance it before, developing solutions to those problems. So that might be a smart way to begin in an area where there is no data. But typically in most areas, you will find some data that will help you contextualize the problem, the prevalence, the dimension of the problem, the risk factors that predict the problem. This will help us to understand whether the solutions you're proposing would address the problem that you aim to study. You also want to discuss historic or environmental elements that have led to the issue. You want to clearly define the social, economic, or environmental context, emphasizing the project's necessity and impact. So a good introduction typically would establish why that project is even needed. It will establish what problem you are addressing and why. It will establish it will justify the need for your projects. And people should be able to, come out of reading that introduction with greater insight on the need to tackle the problem. After you've done an introduction that lays out the problem you want to accomplish, you want to address, it's also important to set out the objectives you want your project aims to accomplish. This is very important because if I'm giving you $2 million, I need to know what you want to achieve with those $2 million. So you need to set clear objective or smart objectives that are achievable, that are measurable, time bound and all that. You don't want to say things that is probably impossible to accomplish, or you don't want to say things that will take even 20 years to accomplish. So, it has to be a clear objective that is reasonable within the time limit permit. So it serves as a centerpiece or blueprint for the entire grant, guiding the rest of the proposal. It's concise, yes, exciting. It highlights all aspects of the proposal in an engaging way without diving into too much detail. And then it directs the reader and establishes the framework for the grant's application and significance. An example is ensure safe, equitable, and dignified access to critical sexual and reproductive health services in humanitarian setting in Africa. That might be an example of an overall objective. And then an outcome could be improved access to quality sexual and reproductive health services for internally displaced people or internally displaced adolescents by conflicts in the ARSH or whatever country you want to do it. So you want to lay out a clear objective or clear outcomes that you aim to accomplish. Now, having done that, you also want to now describe your approach to tackling or to meeting those objectives you've set. And it's important that you present an approach for each of the objectives. Except maybe it's a research application where the method you are using is applicable to all your objectives in a research project. For example, maybe you're doing a qualitative study that sort of help you answer all three objectives you lay out. But more often than not, in a grant application, the objectives might require to accomplish each of maybe 4 or 5 objectives you've set out. So it's important to think about this method in terms of writing the methodology to accomplish each of the objectives and take it one step at a time. So you want to describe the method and strategy we use to achieve the project's goal and objective. You want to explain how the approach aligns with the stated problem and desired outcomes. And then you want to outline the activities to be undertaken and their sequences. Also, you want to include key milestones and a timeline to demonstrate progress in this section. And this section is really important because this is probably the section that would carry the most mark when they evaluate most. So it's important that you dedicate enough time and ensure that the method you are proposing, it's probably the best method to tackle the problem or to achieve the objective you've laid out. Now, the methodology or approach varies and depending on the objective. Say, for example, you want to, say, for example, services in an IDP, for example. And to accomplish that, you might set out sub-objective along the line. One example might be you want to do community engagement to introduce the project to the community. So you want to do demand generation in the community. Maybe you want to do a door-to-door campaign and all that to generate the demand for SRE services. That's one objective, a sub-objective on its own, and that requires its own resources, that require its own different approach and methodology for holding these sort of community outreaches. And two, you might also deal with the supply side. You might also want to train health providers, for example, on respectful and quality care, such that as you're generating demand, you're also ensuring that the supply side, it's available, so that you're not driving demand, but there's no supply, because both would work hand in hand. So you also want to lay out all the activities you will do to ensure that there is supply of quality services in the community. And even as you are doing that as well, you also want to generate evidence of whether what you are doing works. You want to do monitoring, you want to do learning, you want to lay out how you document learning. All those can also be sub-objective. And specific approaches to accomplishing all these sub-objectives needs to be laid out in your approach and method. Also, it's always good to include a theory of change. Remember, maybe you have written in your introduction that people do not have access to sexual and reproductive health services in humanitarian settings, or because of all kinds of reasons, breakdown in supply chain, lack of commodities, all those things you laid out in your introduction, and that's the problem you are tackling. It's always important to have a theory of change on how you see all the activities you are proposing to address the problem, and then to result in the outcomes you want to see. So laying out a theory of change to say, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, that is tackling this particular problem that will result into this change. That way of thinking is usually the language, or it's actually the way of thinking in a grant application. I want to pursue these outcomes with these activities to address this problem. And then these are the assumptions I've got in mind, that if I do this, like this, like this, like this, I'm going to tackle this problem and I'm going to create this change. That is the kind of story that you want to tell the funder, and that makes them fund your proposal. And it's important to have a picture, a diagram that lists out the inputs, the outputs, the outcomes, and the impacts. And even in doing that, there must be a logic behind it. I'm going to train providers to address stigma, to address provider bias, to improve their attitude, to make services more of good quality, I'm going to do demand generation in the community to address myths and misconceptions around contraceptives. I'm going to engage the community leaders who are gatekeepers, the church leaders, on why it's important to use contraceptive. I'm not going to call it family planning because maybe adolescents are not planning families. But I'm going to say that it's important to space children, and contraceptives is a tool for child spacing as well, as opposed to thinking about contraceptives as a tool to prevent pregnancy. So I'm going to do community child engage community leader, engage men, and in all this community to generate demand for services. And I'm going to also train providers, provide commodities to ensure supply in the community. If I do all of these, I'm going to improve access to contraceptive in the community. And I'm going to reduce short bed spacing and improve child outcomes in this community. So that's a sort of logic behind it. You're basically saying that by doing community outreaches, by training providers, by providing commodities in health facilities, or in summary, by addressing both demand and supply side, you will be able to radically change the problem of unintended pregnancy in the community. And also, you are going to address the problem of short bed spacing in this community. And all of these would also result in improved child outcomes, improve reproductive outcomes, as well as empowerment of women in this community. So that sort of logical thinking needs to be laid out also in a diagram. And then you are basically saying that I have some assumptions as well that I'm thinking about. I assume that although this project might be sensitive because issues of family planning, issues of family planning are sensitive, but you are saying, despite all the sensitivity around it, it's possible to still navigate this sensitivity around it to be able to accomplish this. So you lay out some sets of assumptions that needs to be present for your studies to be successful as a part of the logical way of thinking about it. So a theory of training provides a clear framework linking project activities to desired outcomes and impact. It demonstrates how the intervention will achieve its goals. It describes the issue being addressed and its root causes. It sets the foundation for the theory of change narrative. It also outlines the steps and activities required to achieve outcomes. And it shows the logical connection between input, outputs, and outcome. It identifies key factors or conditions necessary for success, helps funders to understand risk and feasibility, and establishes metrics for evaluating progress and measuring impacts. So often, of course, you can also have a log frame that lists out all the outcomes you want to measure and when. And your indicators, and now you define the indicators, and now you want to measure the indicator. That's just another thing to think about. And then it includes methods for monitoring and assessing results. One way to think about inputs, output, and outcome, as well as impact, is an input might just be the set of activities you are implementing. So all the training, the supply of commodity, the community outreaches are examples of inputs, the intervention you are implementing. Now, the outputs are the immediate outcomes from your interventions. Say, for example, I've trained providers. The immediate outcome, the immediate output of that training is that the knowledge would increase. That change in knowledge itself is an output. Things like training reports, training evaluation are clear outputs from the project. An outcome is the change that occurs as a result of training. And that change is a bit more intermediate and long-term, not immediate. So you would see that after the training, the attitude as well as the behavior of provider might change. That in itself is an outcome. Although change in behavior often takes time, so it's more or less an intermediate outcome. Now, when you're thinking about impact is a bit more long-term. Impact might be that in that community, unintended pregnancy reduced, child outcomes improve, and women empowerment improve. Those are a bit long-term, and those are examples of what you think as impact of the project. And it's unlikely that you realize all of that within the life cycle of project, because projects are usually between 3 to 5 years projects. So it might take even longer than that to realize all these impacts in a community, for example. So as such, you might not necessarily be able to document impact. And impact are also influenced by other things happening beyond your project. Your project is probably a small microcosm of what's going on in the community. Other organizations are also contributing in their own ways. Government is also doing their own bit. So all of these put together is what will result in the impact, maybe not your own project only. So once you've done this, you want to then think about how are you going to measure and evaluate success? How are you going to measure success? How are you going to monitor, evaluate, and document learning? I think it's important to also include this component and incorporate learning to improve the project's implementation and impacts. You do this by outlining methods for collecting data regularly to assess activities and outputs. You want to specify tools and techniques for monitoring. Do you want to do field visits? Do you want to do client exit surveys, which is widely used for monitoring? Do you want to do satisfactions? How are you going to measure? What tools are you going to use? Or techniques are you going to use for monitoring? Let me give you an example of a project I'm implementing. I'm implementing a randomized control trial for adolescent mothers, and I'm providing conditional cash transfer, conditional return to school, or uptake of vocational training. I'm providing subsidized childcare so that their kids are taken care of while they return to school. And I'm also, providing life skill education. And I've designed several tools to monitor the implementation of that intervention. I'm assessing the fidelity of the intervention. Are they delivering this life skill education based on the curriculum we provided? So I want to see what was taught per section, and whether they cover all the content, whether the time was sufficient to cover the content. So there's a tool I've designed to monitor that. I have a tool that the facilitators can fill, and I also have a tool that my research assistants can complete when they go on field visits to monitor. They also have observational tools to monitor the condition in which those life skills are being delivered. I've got tools to also conduct interviews with the facilitators and with the beneficiaries. All of these are important as a way to monitor the delivery of that intervention. As you know, if interventions are not delivered with adequate fidelity, it might not work. So it's not just that the intervention did not work. It's just that the intervention wasn't even delivered in the correct dosage with the correct fidelity. That might be the reason why it did not work. So it's important to do proper monitoring. Typically in a large-scale program, you want to have pause and reflect sections to say what's working, what's not working. Can we adapt our program to more be able to address the need? And many funders are allowing program adaptation, especially for large-scale program. I'm also part of I'm part of a project that it's worth £200 million, and it's being implemented in 27 countries. So such large-scale program all funds come with a flexibility of program adaptation. So I'm part of the evidence and learning team that is helping the program to do program adaptation, to document learning, to do proper monitoring, to verify results. All of these are part of what I'm doing on this large-scale program. So typically, you want to be able to pause and reflect. You want to be able to document lessons on what's working, what approaches are working to reach young people, to reach people with disability, to reach the poorest with SRH services. You want to document all the program. So you don't want to run into the same problem you run into in phase one. So documenting tacit knowledge is extremely important as well, such that your program and a new person is coming, you can share all those experiences and then things can run smoothly. And then if there are issues that you need to you want to adapt, you're able to track recommendations and make those changes. So also you want to include metrics, indicators, and benchmarks for assessing effectiveness. You want to highlight processes for reflecting on, analyzing data to refine strategy. So it's just all about collecting, monitoring data. You want to regularly analyze them, make recommendations to adapt the program. But more importantly, it's also part of the process evaluation of the program you're implementing. And then you want to show insights from MEL activities. You want to show insight on how the MEL activities will inform decision-making and improve future interventions. So it's both for the program you are doing and for future programs. And then you want to detail how funders, beneficiaries, and partners will be involved in MEL activities to ensure transparency and relevance, and explain how findings will be communicated to stakeholders and used to demonstrate accountability. In fact, some funders might want you to write about public accountability in your proposal. Funders like ARSH often require that. Having done all of these, you want to do a budget, as well as justify why that budget is needed to accomplish the activities you've set out. So it's important to familiarize yourself with the funding restrictions. Some funders will say you can't buy computers. There are restrictions on travel. There are restrictions on the salary of the PI, or they put some restriction on indirect costs. Some might allow up to 5%, 7%, 10%, 15%, 20% indirect costs, even higher than that. So all of this is important to familiarize yourself with the funding restrictions so that you're budgeting based on what's permissible. Some funders will not allow you to buy a car, even though your organization needs a car to run your office. Some grants will certainly not allow you to buy a car with their money. So you can't include cars, for example, in your budget when it's not permitted. So it's important to explain how the donors fund will be allocated and utilized to support project implementation, budget for personnel salaries based on LOE, supplies, materials, equipment, travel expense, overhead costs, and other relevant expenditures. And you also want to specify the total amount requested from the donor and include additional funding sources or in-kind contribution, because some donor might also say that you co-fund by up to 10%. So if you have all those, or if you have people that can work for free on the project as well, because their time is already covered on other projects, those are in-kind contribution, examples of in-kind contribution. All in all, you want to demonstrate that the fund will be used strategically to achieve the project's objectives. Now, grants differ. There are grants that require a lot of staff time and staff salary. And there are those that require, spending money in a committee. Say, for example, if you are doing a cash transfer project, for example, you are spending a lot of that money on program implementation because you are giving the money out to beneficiaries, for example. So it might be heavily loaded on program implementation, or it might be heavily loaded on staff time. But it's important to justify why that's what's needed to accomplish the objectives you set. So you need to justify some, now, and then we said budget for personnel salary based on LOE. LOE simply means level of effort. So in a typical year, how many working days will Anthony or Bernard or Han be spending on the project? That's what level of efforts really mean. If that's the only thing the person will be doing, Monday to Friday for the whole year, that person will be budget for at 100%. If the person, does other things, maybe they only have half of their time available to work on the project, you budget for them at 50%, and then they cover 50% of their salary. So that's how you think about the budget. But often, I don't expect many of you to do the budgets yourself. You might need an accountant in your organization to sit with you to do the budgets. All you probably need to do is to be able to lay out all the activities you want to implement, such that an accountant can cost it for you and then be able to justify it for you. And then maybe Bernard and Anne can think about bringing some people from our accounting department to take everyone through how we do budgeting a typical proposal. That might just be another practical demonstration of how to budget. Now, it's also important to reflect on what risks are there. And how am I going to mitigate those risks? Because it's important that you are as prepared as possible. It's important to risk are things that may or may not happen. If something is going to happen 100%, it's no longer a risk. It's an outcome that is inevitable, right? So a risk is something that may or may not happen. So it has potentiality of happening. So what are all the things that are likely to happen that can hinder the implementation of your project or limit you from accomplishing your objective and attaining the results and outcome you set out? So it's important to think about that. So you want to list potential risks that could affect the project success. It could be financial risk, it could be operational risk, it could be environmental risk, social risk. One risk might be that staff turnout is typically a risk in many projects because people move for different reasons to other organizations. So there are chances that they may not remain, except maybe you work in organizations that are so stable. Say, for example, universities are relatively stable, but even many universities now are also losing staff to other universities as well. So it's also not guaranteed that people in universities will remain there forever. So staff attrition, it's one risk that can also limit the implementation of your project. Imagine someone that is crucial, your project manager leaves. What's going to happen? So you think of mitigation. That even though there's a possibility of staff turnover, it would take us within so months to find a replacement. And then we have 2 people, 3 people working on one thing, such that if one leaves, the work can continue. Those are mitigation you are thinking about when you are drafting this section of a proposal. You also want to analyze the likelihood and potential impact of each identified risk on the project. Typically, you also want to rate the risk. What is the likelihood of this happening, and what is the impact? How damaging is the impact? So you want to also do those sort of rating. You want to outline specific actions or measures to prevent or minimize the risk. You want to include contingency plan to address challenges if they arise. You want to describe how risk will be regularly monitored throughout the project. You want to highlight strategies for adapting to unforeseeable circumstances, and you want to explain how risk and mitigation plan will be communicated to funders, partners, and stakeholders to ensure transparency and accountability. Now, in extreme cases, if you provide services to people, SRH services to people, there are chances that mistakes can happen or accidents can happen. That's an extreme form of risk that can happen, that can really even have implications for your funders if you are being sued and asked to pay damages. So it's a financial risk, it's a professional risk, and it's a reputation risk. So you need to think about all of these in relation to your project, and now you're going to adapt or minimize the risk. So many funders will demand for this section. Also, you will need to include a timeline or a work plan. In the first 3 months, what are the immediate things you will do in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years? If it's a 5-year project, what are you going to do in the 5th year? So it's very easy to do. You just list out all your activities, and then in the row section or in the column section, you list out the months. You can do every month on a month-by-month basis. Maybe it's a 30 months or 60 months or 100 months project. You list them out. If it's too long, you might just do first quarter, second quarter of years of 2025, 26, 27. You can just do that. And then it's a bit more, it's a smaller table as opposed to accounting for every month. And then you just put a heat map. You can color code it when activities will happen. And then it's easy for reviewers to see what you aim to accomplish. And it's important that you are very granular in listing out your activities. So if you are doing a research project, you know you want to write a protocol, you want to apply for ethics approval, you want to train field workers, you want to do data collection, you want to do data cleaning and analysis, transcription, you want to do report writing, manuscript writing. All of these activities you're going to lay out and indicate when you will do each of them. And that's what is needed or expected in this section. Typically, you do it in a table. You don't even need to do narration. But then the activities need to align with the objective of the study. And then the timeline also needs to align with the timeline set by the funder. So strategy for success include a timeline of milestones table to illustrate progress. It's very visually appealing as opposed to writing it down in prose. Provide examples of successfully completing similar tasks within the timeline and budget constraints, e.g. subject enrollment in a study. Now, personnel is also extremely important. And you might propose a very good idea. In fact, some proposals fail, not because the idea is not relevant, because the idea is innovative, but because of the personnel that they put forward to implement the idea. So it's important to take this section very, very seriously because they are going to judge this section. Typically, what you want to do is when you look at the request for proposal and you look at what the funder is looking for, ask yourself, do you have expertise to implement this project? If the answer is yes, so meaning you describe the expertise you have, right? If the answer is partially, you ask yourself, what other expertise are needed? Who can I reach out to from what organization that can bring that expertise? So you might, instead of going alone for the grant application, you might consider partnering with a sister institution to go together because that would make or mar the success of your proposal. Now, if they need an earth economics, do you have an economist? Maybe they want to do value for money evaluation, and you've not done value for money evaluation, and it's a requirement for the proposal. Can you reach out to an economist who has the expertise in doing value for money evaluation, for example, or cost effectiveness evaluation, and add that to your team? Remember, you are maybe an SRHR researcher. You have expertise in doing RCT, you've done all of these things. Or a program implementer, you've been implementing projects. Do you have a strong M&E team that can do all of this? So you go together. So it's not just about writing these sections very well, but it's just about thinking about what sort of expertise are needed. So there is an expertise matrix. You want to list out all the expertise required. List out the name of the members of your team in the role section, the expertise needed in the column. and then match. Who has this? This one has 10 years experience, he's done this, he's done that. Okay, it's not done this, you know. That sort of table might help you map whether you have expertise for all the skills, experiences required. And it's important to do that. You also then provide a brief introduction to the key personnel involved in the project. You want to highlight their key roles and responsibility within the project. You want to summarize the relevant skills, experience, and expertise of each team member, demonstrate how their background align with the project's goal and objectives. Identify the principal investigator, co-investigator along with their primary responsibilities. Explain why the proposed personnel are essential for the project's success. Also, you want to highlight how their contributions will impact the project's outcome. Mention any collaboration, partnership, and advisory role that enhance the project, and then include concise resume or bios for each team members, if required by the funder. Also, you might want to do a small organogram of who is going to report to who is going to lead specific activities. And how are they going to report to the PI or to the lead? Now, resources and institutions are also really important. If you are a small organization, you might also want to demonstrate what you've done previously related to the project. Have you implemented similar projects in the future? So it's just about telling stories about the capacity, organizational capacity. Also, if you are doing an NIH application, they typically would ask about equipment, space, IT resources, calls, animals, all these things are NIH grants requirements that you need to reflect on. They want to know about institutional support. So support is available within your institution to implement the project. Do you have resources necessary to complete this project? You need to take this section seriously as well, because it's important that you lay out that your institutions is not only well-resourced, but they're also supportive of implementing the research or the project you want to implement. Now, these are, cross-cutting things to consider. Competence is really important. You want to prove that you can deliver. Proving that you can deliver is crucial. Demonstrate competence by showing what you have achieved in the past. Convince of the ability to deliver the research. Form a winning team and get the best PI. Sometimes you might write the proposal and you might not be the best PI to carry it out. And it's just what it is. Sometimes, maybe PI is also someone that is a lot more junior because it's a capacity building kind of fund. Or it's someone that is a bit more senior. Mind you, in fact, our executive director described grant proposal. She made an analogy that's really important. That, winning a grant application is like a football team winning a football match. You need defenders, you need midfielders, you need goalkeepers, and you need strikers. Strikers tend to, take lots of the glory, right? But then strikers will not be able to score goals without midfielders, without wingers, without defenders, and without good goalkeeper, they probably won't even win the match. So it's always important to build a team like you would build a winning football team, right? You get the best people possible to be part of your team, because that might be the major difference. I once wrote an NIHM application, and in fact, the innovation was really high, but the rating on the team was low. It was on mental health, and the team do not necessarily have enough mental health expertise. And that was a major, major issue. Now, sometimes if you are bringing people together to work in collaboratively, it's important to also demonstrate that you've worked together in the past. So it's not just about, oh, this call is coming, let me reach out to this person, even though I've not worked with the person before, because people might have concerns about whether it's possible for you to work together because you've not worked before. So if you've done anything before, it's always important to also reflect on the collaborations between the team that you're putting together previously. So important to form a winning team and get the best PI. Why should the organization be the one that receives the fund? So you want to promise excellent research. Also, sustainability is one thing that funders also ask for. And it simply means how you thought about what you will do when funders run out of money. What's the exit strategy? Because fundings are limited. They are not there forever. They are not in forever supply. So it's important to see, how do you carry on this work beyond this funder that you're currently requesting money for? So it's important to think about sustainability. Now, another point to also make is some organizations, some funders might ask for youth involvement or involvement of marginalized people. Some might even ask you to reflect on diversity, equity, and diversity, equity, and just sort of missed out on the last one. But on diversity of your team, diversity of who will benefit from your intervention. Are you leaving out the people that are most affected? You know, how are you involving young people? If it's a program for young people, how are you involving young people in the design, in the implementation, even in the monitoring and evaluation? All of this you might want to reflect on how you're involving young people. And if you're not thinking about that, it's important that you think about youth involvement in your proposal application. I will stop there and take questions. Thank you for listening. I'm sure we tried to do this within 1 hour, but everything I've said might take you days or months to even write if you are drafting a proposal application. But I've summarized it as much as possible, and I believe the team is still available to do a deep dive for specific sections and do a better demonstration. Thank you.
Thank
Over
you.
to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anthony. That was quite a good presentation. I think my key takeaways would be to prove that you can deliver. You might know your expertise, but it's important to write your proposal in a way that persuades others to believe in your expertise, and of course to demonstrate your competence, that of your team, and that of the organization. We do have some questions in the Q&A feature that you can probably start responding to, but even before that, I'll allow the participants to unmute. You please raise your hand if you need to unmute, and I'll unmute you so that you can probably ask Anthony your question. But even as you do that, please look at the questions in the Q&A feature, Anthony. And then if anyone has a question, please raise your hand and then you'll be able to ask your question, or even a comment or some additions as to the slides that we've gone through.
So there's a question on what page or what limit or what count limit is recommended for contest and overview. So for many funders, they would indicate. In fact, for some funders, they have an online platform where, say for example, if you're applying for Wellcome Trust grants, so there are a series of questions with word restriction. So typically there will be word restriction, mandated by the funder. In fact, I'm not sure I've seen a funder that will not put a page or word restriction. Almost all of them do include page or word restriction. And it depends. It depends on the type of application or type of proposal you're applying for. So typically, the funders would provide the guidance. Can you share with us the slides and any proposal or project documents that you have done so far in grant application? Let me say that my grant applications are not to be shared because they are organization documents. But yeah, but if you need samples of proposal, I'm sure you can find online. You can go to Wellcome Trust website. You should be able to see an example of a successful grant there, but that will probably be relevant for a welcome trust application, but there are certainly online proposals that you can see. So sorry, I'm unable to share my proposals with you. Do you have a template for writing the project proposal? Template is usually given by the funder, so it depends on the fund you're applying for. So templates do vary from one funder to the other. So it's extremely important that you take time to read the request for proposal and download the template from the funder. On the methodology section, do I have a narrative and back it up with a tool, for example, a project implementation plan, or any other tool? Yes. So in your methodology, you also want to include the tools that you will be using. I think it's important to indicate. Say, for example, if it's a research proposal and you are doing an ARSH, what tools are you going to use to collect data? Have they been previously validated? So it's important to also include tools in your methodology. So methodology is not just about the design itself, but also the tools, the method of recruitment and all of that. Is there a link between the risk management listing and the hypothesis outlined in the theory of change? Yeah. I think there's a link for sure between the risk management and the hypothesis outlined in the theory of change, because if those risks are inherent, they might mean that you might not be able to achieve the outcomes you set. So they are pretty similar in thinking through your assumption and risk. Can you give us an example how to analyze impact of risk? This is really an interesting ask. If I search my computer, I should be able to find one to show you. Typically, it's a table. Okay, let me take the following question. If there's still time, I might look for an example of a risk matrix and share with you, and just project it. The link of the grant application that you shared is not working. Please share the link that can be copied or linked. I don't know whether this is for. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for me. I'll share that. Anthony, before you proceed with the other questions, I see Chanel. Chanel, you can unmute and speak.
Thank you so
As a
much for the
question.
opportunity. My name is Chanel. Thanks, Anthony. That was quite very insightful presentation. So I just completed my postdoc. Sorry, I'm based in South Africa, University of the Western Cape. So I just completed a 3-year postdoctoral fellowship. So I'm speaking from a point of desperation here. I'm just wondering, in terms of grant application, like, do one just keep on applying? I've applied for like one, and I'm still waiting for a response. I'm in the process of writing another one. Obviously, I have my eyes set up on the Wellcome Trust grants as well. I'm just wondering, is like, do you just go on and keep applying and applying? Or do you apply, develop this idea, apply, what for another idea? Do you apply with the same proposal to different to different funders, or do you just, as you are developing new ideas, you send to different funders? I just need some direction on that, and also it's quite time consuming. So how does one navigate that as an early career researcher? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think it's an important question. And the simple answer, and I agree with you that it's time consuming and laborious in applying for this funding. But I must say that the answer to the question is yes, you keep applying. Now, into specific, whether do you keep applying with the same idea to different funders, or do you keep, developing ideas? I think you do both, right? Because A funder might need something totally different, for example. So sending your own thoughts might not necessarily persuade the funder. So again, that's the way our world is. Even though you have interest in designing an intervention to tackle, say, adolescents' uptake use of condoms, for example, a funder might not be interested in an intervention study. They just need you to do a primary research. So you see, you can't say, oh, let me use the money to do an intervention study, whereas they are requesting for a primary research. So you will need to adapt based on the request of the funder. Now, because an idea is not successful, does not mean that you throw the idea away. It might be important to also repackage the idea for another funder if it's not successful. In fact, if you apply for Wellcome Trust and you are unsuccessful, the good thing is they might provide you with comments. So you can use the comment to improve on the idea and then resubmit again. Some funders might allow up to 2 resubmission before then they close the idea. And some people are not successful at first. They become successful at the second attempt or even the third attempt. But the comments from the reviewers or from the funder would guide you on how to go about that. So the answer to your question is yes to all of them. You keep applying, you keep revising the idea and resubmitting them, but you also keep developing other ideas. And if, success rate in grant application is typically very low. The smaller grants are likely to be more successful than the bigger one. The bigger you go, the lower the likelihood of success. But if you also work in an institution where you have a relationship with funders, I think it's also important to pitch your ideas to funders, even when they are not requesting for grants. So don't, build your career on only going for competitive grants, because that would really discourage you. So you want to be able to also speak to funders. I know these days especially researchers are shy people, but you don't have to be shy. If you have this good idea, you can use it to request for a meeting with funders and talk to them to say, I've got this good idea. Here it is. Are you interested in providing some fund to, even if not to do the entire thing, to do a component of it? If you're able to have those conversations, success might just be around the corner. So there is also a question from let's say, comment for a question from Gumi Abdullah. She say, I can't leave possible to share the presentation for Maureen. Absolutely, the presentation will be shared. And Anne is going to share the presentation. Diversity, equity, disability, and inclusion. Okay, inclusion was the word I was trying to remember. And thank you, Wadrogo. As APHRC, do you have a public database and repository for previous funded proposal to facilitate learning and benchmarking? If you go on our website, you will see all our successful projects that we're implementing. You can read about those ideas. And then if you also go to our data portal, you might be able to read the report of those projects, and that gives you an indication of. But we do not have a repository of our proposals. Those things are private to us. But the projects themselves are available online. What should be the tone of the language used in a proposal? Now, Steve, this is a very good question. You see, it's important that you language. We will do this. It's a better word than to say the project will do this. So you want to write actively, active tenses, and then you want to write with clarity. In fact, while it's important to write terminologies that are relevant or important in your field, it's also important that your proposal could be read by a reviewer. that might not necessarily have the expertise or familiar with those terminologies. So you want to, in some cases, write as though you're writing for a 10-year-old, because the better, or the clarity of your proposal might also make or mar your proposal. So it's important that you use tone that it's active, easy to read, easy to digest. A young person can quickly read it and understand what you're proposing to do. You don't need to write complicated sentences or jargons that are difficult to read. Is the content of every grant proposal the same or different? Certainly, the answer is the content of proposals are different. Yeah, even the expertise required are different. Lists of funders like Wellcome Trust, particularly on reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and health, and women's empowerment or gender. I think Han might be able to come up with a list of funders and share. But there are so many funders. Hewlett, IDRC, USAID, if it has not been there, dismantled completely. And many embassies too, from European embassies, European Union funders that fund ARSH. What are the strategies for approaching funders with your own idea? Instead of waiting for them to launch requests for proposal, can you invite them to learn about your research and potential for funding before any RFPs are launched? 100%, Bansi. Yeah, if you know funders, it's important you can reach out to them. Always ask. Try to get a contact person and talk to them. And then let me also, give you another tip. Funders attend conferences. There is International Family Planning Conference coming up. Most funders will be there. Don't be shy. Go there and chat to them, get their contact, and send a follow-up email. It's important that you always present yourself, present your organizations to funders so that they keep you in mind. Because sometimes they might just want to do a review or an evaluation, and then they just reach out to the people they know without necessarily putting out a public RFA. So if they don't know you, they probably don't share those with you. There are a lot of funding that are not advertised, are only shared with the list they already have. Is it possible to get a dummy practice template? 100%. We can work with Anne again and take notes. We can work with Anne to send you a template. We just download the template from a funder and share with you. How can we leverage technology to our grants application process? AI is really good. It can help you rewrite whatever you are writing to make it clearer, to make it easier to read. That's one example of how you can leverage technology, but do not depend on the AI to write your proposal. Write your proposal yourself. It can help you enhance your language. Can we link the exit strategy with dissemination plan? Yes, you can, but exit strategies differ significantly from dissemination plan. But if you disseminate your findings, you might be able to persuade other funders to put more money to continue the work. That's one linkage. What do you mean benchmarking? I can't remember what this is referring to. Maybe Nurin Gimana can expatiate. Please, can we get a working link to the grant writing application? This shouldn't be difficult. 100%. And again, this is also another request to say, can we get a link to grant application? I think that can be done. And Bernard, as part of these projects, maybe if there are grant applications that could be shared, we can share. In fact, there is one currently that are for early career researcher up to 6 years post-PhD that was shared with me today. So Anne and Bernard can certainly share some grant application with this group. And that's why it's important that you join the community of practice, because you can use that to disseminate grant applications that might be important for people attending this section. Is it possible to derive a one-page abstract from proposal, or they are standalone and treated so? I think yes, you can do a one-pager. You can even do a half-page from a proposal, just like you do for manuscripts. How can we keep in touch with you, Anthony? Can you share your contacts? Are you available to review our grants? I mean, my contracts can be shared. I can add it to the slide so that when it's shared, you can see my contact. But being able to review your proposal depends on how busy I am at the time. We do share us with the link to access grant opportunities. Again, as I said, join the community of practice, and grant applications can be shared through the community of practice. I believe that's possible. Anne, over to you, Anne.
Yeah. Thanks, Anthony. Yes, it's possible, and I'm glad you're referring them to the community of practice, because we do share a lot of these opportunities there, and we're able to discuss. Naomi had her hand up. I still believe Naomi has a question to ask. So Naomi, you can unmute.
There's also a question on how do you join the community of practice?
Okay. I have been sharing the link to the community of practice, but let me just do it in the chat right now. And once you go on this, you use this link and go to the overall community of practice, you'll find our group grant writing. And so you have to register to be a member of the community of practice and the grant writing group. So please look at the link in the chat and click on that and register to be on the COP. Then go ahead and join the grant writing group and any other group that might be relevant to your work and of interest. Naomi,
Hello,
are you? Yeah, okay.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Naomi, I'm available. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to have learned much about grant writing. It's when I'm starting up my career and I'm interested in the research. So I wanted just to comment, anyone who is able to mentor me, maybe can bring a hand and give me a role in research assistant. I would much appreciate, so that I can grow my skills and also be able to one day be able to do the grant writing. Thank you. My background is nursing, and I've done the various courses in research. So I'm up to the task to handle the various tasks that will be accorded. Thank you.
Naomi, where are you based?
I'm in Kenya, currently in Nairobi. I pursued a degree in nursing from JKUAT. Yes, I did graduate in 2019. Yeah, with a degree in nursing, and currently I was in MSF but the project ended. So my passion has always been research, and I've done all the courses that can guarantee me a job as a research assistant. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say you look on our website. Typically, we always put out applications regularly.
Naomi, we recently had quite a recruitment phase for internships. I think over 40, but I know that the deadline was last week on Friday. I would hope that you had a chance, because for sure there would have been something of interest. Quite a lot of exciting research opportunities for upcoming researchers.
Yes, unfortunately, I never managed to make the application. I learned about your research institute 3 days ago, so I'm interested to be following up. And once I see an opportunity, I'll be glad to apply. Thank you.
Right, thank you to all the best. Chanel, sorry, you have your hand up again.
Sorry, just a quick one. I just want to find out. I'm on the community of practice, but I don't see any documents like in terms of the course. Are you going to upload them later? Because I just see discussions, and I have been on it before, but I didn't find it useful. So I'm just wondering how, because even now, like there's not really much information apart from just like people asking questions. So I just want to find out how beneficial this group is and if it's going to be more active maybe going forward. Thank you.
Yes, it is, but my colleague Bernard is going to respond.
Okay, thank you so much for that useful feedback. Yeah, so normally a community of practice is made up of people or participants. So the success of any community depends on the level of engagement by the various participants. So we hope that you will be one of our ambassadors within that community of practice. You will support us by asking questions, responding, and we'll also be having the various documents attached there after this session. So we'll have the documents for the presentations from the various presenters, including Anthony. And yeah, we are hoping to learn more from you guys. Give us feedback, what you want us to do so that we can make that community engaging. And also we are planning also to make it a place where people can network and collaborate. So that is where we'll be putting events that we'll be having. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. And just to add, the course, as Bernard said, has very good application. I think we're over 4,000. That means you're going to have very strong cohorts in the months that we'll be rolling out the course, which means that there will be more engagements once the course starts. I think this is April 3rd. Sometime next week, this is when the course will kick off. So to answer your question, yes, the group will be more active, but it depends with the members. So we're inviting you to be active and to really utilize this group to exchange and to interact. Thank you. We'll take 2 more questions because I see we are past the time. We can start with Karim. You can unmute.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so thank you very much for this wonderful workshop. In fact, I've really gained a lot from it. So, however, before this, I've been trying to register for the grant writing application since I saw the link on LinkedIn. It's not working. Even the links that was shared right now on the question page is still not working. Like it will take me to a blank page. So please, I would appreciate if I can get a link to the grant writing application.
Thank you for that.
Link.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have noticed a couple of the attendees saying that the link is not working, but I wouldn't say there is a problem with the link because we've had over 4,000 applications, so the link is definitely working. However, I acknowledge there might be a problem. So allow me to discuss with our IT because they'll figure out why it's not working on some devices or some networks, and then probably try again tomorrow. We hope this would have been resolved by then. Otherwise, it's the same link that we've been sharing, and some applications have been successful. Even from the chat, someone has indicated that they have been able to apply and it has worked. So I hope you can be able to try tomorrow after we raise the issue with our IT. Ekube?
Thank you for the opportunity. I really need to appreciate the organization, the effort you made to discuss this very important issue, especially for African researchers like us. So I hope you'll pursue doing like this. So going to my question, my first question is, as I said, the presentation is very precise and very important, but it's very short. So we need more in detail and rich content. So do you have a plan to do like that? Because we love to have such kind of opportunity with expertise. This is my first question. My second question is, especially this kind of grant proposal presentation or discussion needs previously win grants. So I recommend, if possible, like to have a person who win previously grants and have different various expertise and would tell us steps and the strengths and the weakness that happen in that way of winning that project or grant is very mandatory. So we can learn a lot from that experience or achievement. So I would love to have such kind of experience by inviting with a winning project proposal previously. So that is a comment or a feedback like thing. So what do you think? Do you have a future plan? Overall, I would like to appreciate the effort. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My colleague Ben will address this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that feedback and question. Yeah, as I said earlier, we are really happy to receive your feedbacks and anything that will work out for you in this initiative. So we've picked that, and maybe in the next couple of maybe months, we'll be able to line up people who've won grants and who can be able to tell you some of the pitfalls and some of the successes. And we are also pleased because Anthony has won several grants. Yeah, and I believe in his presentation he was able to mention not just theoretically, but he mentioned actually through experience on how he has been able to do it. I don't know whether Anthony will want to just say one word on some of the pitfalls.
I mean, it's I know I've been I don't know whether it's this group, but I've had a meeting to make a presentation previously. So this is not a one-off presentation, I believe, Bernard.
Yeah, it's a series.
It's a series of presentation that we keep bringing different people to share insights. And I'm even suggesting that you bring someone to provide guidance on how to do budgets. For example, you can get Dennis, someone from finance, or even Duncan can present on how to do budgets. And I do agree that writing each or every section depends on the level of details. I mean, these are things you do for a long period of time to put them together. Here is a grant application, a successful grant application. And here is how we thought about risk. So this is an example of a table for risk matrix. We have risk description, likelihood of occurrence, impact, and mitigation or risk treatment. So as I said, internal, there is staff turnover. We said it's moderate, meaning it's likely to happen. The impact can be major in terms of delivering the projects. And what we do is a mitigation. This is just what it looks like. How do you determine which one is moderate? Is it likely to, how likely is it to happen? Is it moderate or not? So here it is. We even have political and social disruption, those sort of protests, health crisis, turnover of partners. All of these are examples of risk management in a grant application. I thought I promised to share that. But let me just say that this is not a one-off. You ain't gonna learn everything about grant writing in one or 30 minutes presentation. So always look for opportunities to attend these sort of webinars. I'm sure Anne and Bernard can speak more about what they have in stock for the community of practice, as well as all the other webinars that will be coming. Thank you.
Exactly, and just to add on that, the webinar sessions are meant to be a highlight to learn from the people who've actually gone through this with success, and maybe not success, but just to learn from both sides. And the course that, for example, we are currently running or will be running, we are currently running the registration form, will provide this detailed and in-depth content that can really help you be able to craft good and winning grant proposals. So if you've not signed up for the course, I encourage you to do that. But just as Bernard mentioned, our webinars happen on a monthly basis. It's a webinar series, and soon we'll be able to share the whole list of the series we'll have coming up in the year in the community of practice, and also through email and our social media pages. So you'll have the option to register for the series of webinars, and you can get reminders as they happen. Join those, and also join the course as it is open. And then we can have one more question from Fatima, and then we'll close the session until next time. Fatima has disappeared. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions.
There's one hand that is up.
Messeret, you still have your hand up? A new question, or that's the old hand? Okay. I think that's about it. Someone asked about the internship application. This closed on Friday, so I would think that the shifting process is currently ongoing, and the outcome will probably come out mid-April, or maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.